I'm Dante, and this is Dante Dakata, and welcome back to the channel. I'm an expat teacher vet based out of Tokyo, Japan, and there are stories everywhere, and just by watching the video, you are a part of mine. Subscribe, like, comment, all that jazz. Today's video is one of those talky videos. I had done two previous videos, which you can catch up above, about money, basically about money and survival in Japan. And those videos did fairly well in the sense that, you know, there was some engagement there. But I got another question from one of those videos maybe 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to answer that question. And I just made my glasses worse. I want to answer that question so that I can kind of give people more of an insight on, you know, some things to concern yourselves with, and, you know, some ways that you can solve some problems. So before I get into the question, let me ask a question of my own. And that question is, do you think that assistant teacher money, which is how a lot of people gain entry into Japan, do you think that assistant teacher money is enough to survive in Japan? I'll give you a solid 3 seconds. 2, 1. The answer is yeah, you could survive. And this video isn't really about survival, it's about thriving. And surviving in Japan is fairly easy on that salary because it is made for the lowest common denominator as far as money is concerned. Living in a generally sparsely populated area, or living in a very small apartment where, you know, you're only supporting one person. Maybe that apartment is paid for by the company itself, and then you're left with having to pay for taxes, social insurance, as well as your daily living needs. And that's the bare minimum. But we don't want to talk about the bare minimum. We're not talking about survival. Let's talk about thriving, which takes us into the question. I mean, you can see the question here. I'm going to paraphrase because I can't read it because I'm showing it to you and I don't have anything in my hands. But to paraphrase, they're asking about whether or not they, how they would go about finding a new job or finding another job in Japan to kind of add to their income, so they're not just surviving off of that teacher's pay, but they're actually making a little bit more cheddar. And so I want to go into this with the disclaimer that I am not an immigrations official, nor am I a lawyer. So I cannot tell you legally what to do. However, I have been here long enough to know enough of the law and the immigration law to know what not to do. So by virtue of that fact, I'm going to give you some advice. And this isn't just for that person who asked a question, but for anyone who's wondering, you know, how they can augment or supplement their pay here in Japan. And I do mean, or excuse me, I say supplement, complement. Supplement is to replace, complement is to add to complement the money that they're making from their teacher job in Japan. So let's start off with the creative stuff, which is things that I'm doing. I'm doing YouTube. Like I get a little couple pennies here and there from where you sign up to some of the things that are below, like my sponsors and things like that. Also, there, you know, people who do photography for not just like, you know, art purposes, but they do stuff for like stock photos and things like that. You know, there are tons of creative jobs, kind of side gigs out there that you can kind of get into that I could not possibly cover because I'm not the most creative person in the world, these videos aside. So that's another lane that maybe I can get into with some other creatives. Maybe I can bring some creatives together here and we can talk about those kinds of things. I'm going to go into some of the kind of quote unquote more normal stuff that I've seen, that I've encountered, and that I've approached. And let's start from teaching. So you're already teaching if you're one of those people who are in that situation where you need to find an additional job here. You've already been teaching. So why not complement your teaching job with some more teaching? And that can be done online. Now, there are companies here in Japan that are going to pay you Japanese yen to teach online. You can sign up to one of the services where you can post your availability, and then through that company, you kind of do a video chat lesson program. One of those is DMM Eikaiwa, which I have worked with as a facilitator in my own junior high school, and those individual teachers would then interface with my students in a one-off class. Now, you can do that from anywhere though. That's not something that you only have to do here in Japan. You can do that from anywhere. Why is that important? Well, if we're talking about currency, and right now the Japanese yen is not doing so well versus the dollar, and you're looking to maybe send some money back home or pay some student loans that you have when you just got to Japan, well, then that currency exchange matters, and it's hurt people a lot now that the yen is 144, 143 to the dollar. Whenever you're watching this is October of 2022. It's 140 to 1. And that's not great if you're paying back loans in a country like America or the UK or Europe, where you're paying in the euro. So you have to kind of keep in mind where that money is going to be complementing you. If it's complementing you here in Japan, then you're not going to have to worry about that. But if it's complementing you elsewhere, then you want to look at the currency that's going into that. And for DMMA Kaiwa, I believe, and I'll check their website again and correct myself here, that they're going to be paying you in your local currency at the rate for which it exchanges to Japanese yen. Why does that matter? Because depending on the time and depending on when you get into this video, that rate of pay is either going to be better or worse than what you're already getting. Now, as far as immigration is concerned, you're teaching, so it still falls on that instructor's visa. However, depending on the company, you need to get permission to do that job, and depending on your visa, you're going to need permission from the immigration's office to do additional work. Not too difficult there, filling out some paperwork, going to the immigration's office, and then showing them the employment contract, or the employment contract or the application, stating the kind of job, the nature of the work, the amount of money they're going to be making. Because that's all things they need to know for you to be legally working here in Japan. All right, so that's the teaching side. Of course, you can do that online stuff. There's also weekend gigs, online gigs here in Japan physically that you can get into. And those can be seen on Gaijinpot, Ohio Sensei, and a number of other job posting sites, which I'll again post in the description box below. All of these basically will say exactly, the hours, the amount of money, the kind of visa that you need for those particular jobs. So again, you need to make sure that the visa that you have is congruent with the visa that is required for that particular job, or either A, and this should be the case, they will not hire you, or B, which this shouldn't be the case, however, I'm going to address it anyway. You should not go to a company that is okay with letting you work off of a bad visa or off of a visa that is not up to standards. They don't care about you. This is a red flag.
Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? And if they would, I do not do that thing.
Okay, don't get yourself into that situation. All right, so teaching stuff aside. So we have the teaching stuff. You can do it physically. We can do it online. You can find, some weekend gigs, things like that. There's also retail. Now, retail, there's a little bit more skill level that goes into that when it comes to Japanese. You need to have about an N3 level of Japanese to be able to do these jobs. Now, I have applied for a retail job because I love Lululemon. I mean, I'm wearing Lululemon pants now. You can't see them. I'm always wearing something Lululemon every day. So I was like, oh, you know what? I love the people there. They're my friends. I think I want to work there. Did a group interview, Japanese absolutely atrocious, made a complete fool of myself because I was interviewing with other Japanese people in a group setting. Now, while Lululemon is a foreign company, that does not mean that you can get by on not being able to communicate effectively. So at that time, I could not communicate effectively, which means I can't help the customers, which means I can't communicate about the product, which means I can't get that job. So you're going to need to have the prerequisite skills to be able to do that. Now, could I do that now? Likely I could. And depending on the kind of retail job it is, maybe you don't need to communicate that much. Maybe you just need to be able to, stay at the cash point and be able to answer, basic questions about, hey, do you want a bag? Hey, do you want this warmed up? Hey, which cigarettes do you want? The kind of convenience store jobs, that's retail as well. I've seen tons of foreigners do those kinds of jobs as well, to complement or, augment the kind of pay that they're making already. So these are things that you could also do. And there are countless retail opportunities if you know where to look. There are magazines like in every station, which I'll post a picture of one here over my face, that have like some of these jobs that are available listed here. You also have, like in the mall, they have job boards. So if you go to any of the malls like Lalaport and things like that, you can see a job board wall. And there you can see what's available. And I think some of the rates I've seen have been about 1,100 yen per hour, things like that, which I think is decent when you're trying to, complement the amount of money that you're already making. So now let's take it a step further. Maybe you don't want to do retail. Maybe you aren't that creative. Maybe you don't want to do anything teaching. Well, you're going to have to look a little bit deeper into the weeds. Now, there are some factory jobs that are available, but again, visa situation. There are some caretaking jobs that are available, but again, visa situations. There's also like one-off gigs, people that need help services. Those will also require some modification to your visa. However, all of these things can be found on websites, on those job postings, as far as in the boards are concerned. You go to a store, you can see they're like, oh, we're hiring. The regular ways that you would find a job in your home country are ways you can find them here, and you have these magazines, available pretty much everywhere where they have those jobs available to you as well. So, parting shots about money. So whatever money you make, you need to keep track of all that, because at the end of the year, you're going to need to do taxes, and doing taxes is I won't say infinitely hardly, but doubly hard when you have twice the amount of income. When I say twice the amount, I mean twice the company income. So you have two companies that you're getting income from. You're going to need to be able to do your taxes, and it's going to be more difficult to do that. So you're going to need to find someone to help you do those services. Always available online to find that. If you're in the Tokyo area, I highly recommend you join the Tokyo Expat Network. They're a fantastic group of people that are extremely helpful. Occasionally you'll have a troll here or there, but the moderators are amazing, and they'll help you with all of that process if you're in the Tokyo area. If you're not, I'm sure that there's a local area group that you can go to and ask them about taxes and things like that. But I highly recommend that you go into it with eyes wide open. There are a lot of things based on your income. Your city taxes are based on your income. Your pension's not based on your income. Your health insurance is based on your income. So you need to make sure that everything that you're doing, you're keeping track of it, and you're understanding that with that compensation comes consequence as well. So it's not just, oh yeah, more free money. Okay, last thing, and this is the bonus. If you find a job that's in your home country, that is online, that's kind of like work from home, that's remote, how is that addressed here in Japan? Great question. It's not. And here's the thing. If you are already taxed and your work residence is that home country, then you have a separate situation going on here, because that work is not Japanese work. That's not work from a Japanese company. Ergo, it's not something that is privy to the Japanese tax system. Now, if it's import-export situation, then that's a different set of things. I can't get into that. I don't know the laws on export-import stuff. I do know that I have to pay an import tax whenever I'm importing new iPhones, new watches, and things like that I bring in, that I buy for my personal use. But other import-export business stuff like that, I have no idea about. However, what I do know is this. I do receive an income from the United States, because by virtue of the fact that I'm a retiree, I receive my retirement pension from the United States. That money is untouchable by Japan because it is already pre-taxed by America. It's actually tax-free from America, but there are certain income taxes I have to pay on my retirement. So that money is not counted towards Japan because it is paid to me in dollars by the American government. And then I can use it here as I see fit. If you find that kind of situation where you can find a job that is in a foreign country, your home country, and you receive currency that way, I would highly recommend that. I would highly recommend that because it lessens the complication of of having to do taxes here, and it makes it infinitely easier to pay the things that you have going on in your home country. So let's wrap things up. Finding a second job here is relatively simple. Like if you're willing to go through the process of interviewing and things like that. Getting that extra money will make your life just a little bit easier. And when you're trying to travel, you're trying to enjoy all the things you want to do in Japan, surviving isn't enough. You need to be able to thrive. I have this 50-30-20 number in my head where if, you can distribute it any way you want to. 50% to necessity, 30% to savings, 20% to personal, or what I think is better, 30% to necessity, 50% to savings, 20% to personal. I mean, it just sounds better. If you can do a 50-30-20 split, and feel comfortable, that's where you want to be. You want to be in a spot where your day-to-day life, is not a concern, where you're not eating ramen, and ramen's great, but you're not eating cup ramen at the end of the month because you're just trying to make it. And you didn't even get to do anything fun. You just survived. Let's get out of that mindset and try to figure out a way that we can get you a little bit more money. At the end of the day, though, what would really be great is if the companies that were here were actually paying what they should be paying. And the best way to get that outcome is to join a union. And there's more information about those general unions and things like that on the Facebook pages. I highly suggest you look into them. They are doing their due diligence to fight for fair and equitable income, considering what people are actually making right now, considering inflation, which people say doesn't exist, which actually does, and considering the fact that currency is currently in a very bad state of affairs. Anyway, if you have more questions, please leave them below. I'll be happy to help you with anything that I'm privy to, and if I don't know, then I'll reference you to somebody who does. I'm not the end-all be-all of information in Japan. I've made it quite clear that anyone who tells you that they know everything, don't listen to them. I don't know everything, but what I do know, I share, and that's all I can do. I'm Dante. This is Dante Dakata. Until next time, later.